right. Hello, good afternoon, officially now. I am Jamie Buckland with the West Virginia Few and talking today with Hope Director Adam Shuemake. Adam, hello. How's it going in
Hey,
Charleston today?
it's going great. Things are going smoothly. They really are. I know folks want things happen a whole lot faster than they have been going, but we had a whole lot of work to complete. So EMA folks have really been doing a really good job of getting things up and running. So we're pretty hopeful and excited about what the future holds down here.
Yeah, and so you guys got out the survey yesterday.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I guess let's just start there.
Yeah.
If for the folks who were approved before July 6th,
Yes.
they should have gotten an email yesterday from the Education Market Assistant. So tell us a little bit about why we're doing that, why you're putting that survey out, and what its purpose is.
Okay, yeah, really, the main survey, the whole reason for this is really to help us determine funding. We have to know where you guys were in school for the last few months here during the injunction. It really helps. It's going to help us determine, because if you went to public school, you don't get the full amount. You'll get a prorated amount. If you were in private school or homeschool, you do get the full amount. So it's extremely important that you get the surveys back to us. If you do not, those funds will basically be forfeited.
Right.
So it's extremely important that you guys get them in. Like right now, we're up to about 1,600 applicants have been returned. Our surveys have been returned. So doing good with that. So
that's right at almost half. So that's pretty good.
Yes, that's really good. So we're really pleased with that.
Okay. So if I'm a parent who filed a request to apply, right, because there was that interim after May 15th. Right. So if I have filed a request to apply, am I waiting on the portal to open?
Yes, you're going to have to wait a little bit. So once again, and I know you guys know this, but that stopped everything with us, the injunction. So we had folks that are pending. We got application requests in. We got application request forms in. And we may not even got the link out to you. So the thing to remember, if you got your application request form into us prior to July 6th, we will be processing you guys once everything, the portal's back up and running and moving forward. Also with the surveys, an important thing to know is that if you had multiple kids, you got multiple links. You got multiple emails with those links. And they were sent out in different batches because their system, like if it was going to my household and I got 3 kids, if it recognized it was the same email, it wouldn't let them send that out. So you don't get multiple emails when they do communicate. So there are different batches, so you got them at different times. So be on the lookout for that as well.
Okay. And we've already heard back from some who are saying, I don't know if I answered correctly. I have questions.
Right.
We're just waiting for the portal to open and waiting for Step Up for Students to be able to pick up where they left off in helping those parents.
Yes.
Okay.
And like I said, if that's something that you may answer it wrong and you're kind of like, don't panic. You'll be able to contact the EMA and they will be able to help you walk through how to correct that.
Okay. What about the parents who can't remember what email they used or can't get into that email account? What are we telling them?
Yeah. So for that, once again, one thing you need to remember is here in our office, we don't have access to EMA. That their portal. We can't go in there and click a few buttons and change things for you. So you're going to have to wait until the helpline is back up and running. And once that happens, let's say you didn't get your email, all right, or you don't have any idea how to get logged in. You have to wait, contact them, and they will be able to resubmit that survey for you. This isn't going to go away. You got till December 2nd. All right. So don't panic on me, and keep calling Jamie and asking her 15,000 times what to do. What you just need to do really is just kind of wait for this portal to come back up. And when it does, contact them and say, hey, I forgot my email. I need you to use this email. And we'll be able to get that survey to you.
And December 2nd is our sunset for making sure.
Yes, sorry about that.
No, you're okay. So December 2nd is kind of our sunset for making sure that we know what they opted to do in the interim in response to the injunction. So let's talk about providers then, because of course, providers had just started, schools were able to start their process, some of them in April, but then they were still trying to work out some kinks there. Other providers had started qualifying like June 30th, and then there is July 6th. And so what are we telling providers?
Okay, so once again, they said, like you said, we had just got it open for providers and it went boom. So what's going to happen? Some of them, we do have a list, and there were like 4 or 5 that got everything turned in prior to that. And they're good. But if you were one of the providers that was kind of waiting, or need to turn something in or whatever, we're going to be able to get that up and going again. And once again, we're open to have the portal open in the first week of November. And you'll have really up until January to kind of get that up. That's never going to close to be a provider. But, I know you guys want to be in there, so parents can start using their funds as soon as they can. But, if you didn't get in, it's okay. I know there's some folks talking about, well, my name's not on the list. I know, I guess that's something that you guys do.
There is no list.
There is no list.
Right. In your world, there is no list.
Yeah, in our world, there is no list. So, we don't have a list of those things. I will tell you, if there's any schools that kind of tune into this or reach out to you, EMA contacted us today, and you should be receiving a phone call from Heidi or Meredith today within the next couple of days. And what they're doing with our schools is just making sure that the administrator didn't change, the emails didn't change. Okay. They're just making sure that you guys they're still who they need to be contacting. So if you do get a weird kind of phone call, it's legit. They are trying to help you to really move this process along for our schools.
Okay, that's great. And so when it comes to being a provider, and I'm going to go into detail here in a few minutes when we let you go, you don't have to get in the weeds with us, but when it comes to being a provider, they need to be thinking about this kind of in 3 different buckets, if you will, right? There are schools, and then service providers, and then vendors. Yes. Are the vendors still going to be sending an email out to get set up for the markets?
Yes, the vendor is totally different. When you think of a vendor, I think of like a Walmart. Or like a Scholastic Books. That's more of a vendor. Like you're going to basically it is a lengthy process because they have to take your catalog and upload each thing. Yeah. So it's not like a provider that signs up. You basically fill out this information, give them where the money needs to go, and you're good to go. A vendor. So I know some folks got emails that try to sign up as vendors and told them basically there was a backlog and we'll get to you when we can. And that's the truth. They really have to go in. It takes a lot more time to sign up a vendor than it does either a school or a provider. Yes. Okay.
And providers just, they have access to the provider handbook. I mean, that's still out there. We're still directing traffic to that provider handbook. They can look over their qualified expenses. They can go through and see, even it has like a detailed list of going through the portal. Yes. So is that still a good resource that we can direct traffic to?
Yeah, that's going to be a good thing for them. And once again, I still have the thing I've been receiving is from providers. When I'm going on here and I keep getting messages that's under construction. It is under construction. Once again, they hope to have that up by the first week in November. I know everybody's super anxious, but you please understand, 4 months of work was basically halted. And they couldn't do anything either, and they're trying very hard to get up and running. So
So now, what about the families? We'll hop back. We're hopping all over the place here, but what about the families who are in the midst of qualifying? So maybe they weren't eligible before July 6th, and they have enrolled their child in school. And so, what are we doing with these families? Where do they need to go?
So, number one thing, you need to stay where you're at. All right. If you're enrolled in a virtual public school, virtual charter school, or a charter school in West Virginia, or the West Virginia school, all right, you need to stay where you're at. You have to be enrolled in public school at the time of application. I've already had a couple folks email me and tell me that we were doing our 45 days, we met it, and we enrolled in XYZ private. they lost eligibility.
Right.
So please just stick it out for a little bit longer. You cannot apply until that EMA portal is up and running. Now, what that's going to look like for you guys is a little bit different because the application window has closed. Now, there's not going to be a link on our website that says click here to apply. So once you meet your 45 days, you will need to email our office and you will need to request an application request form. We will send that to you. At that time, you will fill it out and send that back to our office. The board will review that information. And at that time, if they deem that you're eligible, you will be sent a link of how to apply for this school year.
Okay, great. And then those looking for 23-24.
Yes. Okay. So we definitely want to get ahead of this. All right. So our application window is going to open up March 1st to May 15th. All right. Now, this past year, with being the very first year of the program, we extended that date. And we were really, the board really voted to kind of let that happen. Just continue letting it happen until basically the start of school. Then the injunction hit, and we have a huge backlog of kids. We have over 400 applications that we have to manually process. All right. So that's the reason for the stop of that. Okay. But moving forward, there's not going to be a window open up after May 15th. So parents, you need to make sure that you apply during that time. I really want to talk to our kindergarten families. They have to understand that you have to get in there and get that done. And the big thing you have to accomplish is getting a WEVIS number. Okay, so you need to start contact in March. Not right now. Right. The counties will kill me. Not right now. All right. So in March, you need to start, requesting to get these WEVIS numbers. And so you do not definitely want to be like May 14th trying to get that, because some counties it takes them a while to process that. Some counties it's literally walk in, get your stuff and go. Some are not. So this is something, if you're especially an incoming kindergartner, you want to make sure that you're getting that taken care of. And even if you think this might be an option for us to go to private school or homeschool, you need to make sure you do it, because after that May 15th, there's not going to be I changed my mind. All right. Okay. So we really want to tell parents to do that. And for our because I know this is going to be an immediate question you'll get. So for our kindergarten families that may not be 5 by July 1st, all right, and you have to test in, you're basically going to have to test in. And I know that happens sometimes in August for some counties. And another thing you understand is not all this is something that counties don't have to do. Right. But you need to find a county that will test your child. So once you get that approved, you kind of went in and get your exam. You passed it. The same kind of thing for a 45-day kid. You'll have to contact our office. Let us know, hey, my child was tested in August. We passed the test. And at that time, we'll send you an application request form. You'll send that back to us. And we will review. And you have to send your test results in with that as well. Okay. We'll look at that. And if we see that it's good, the board will approve that, and we'll send you a link to apply. So okay. We definitely need to be thinking already in terms. I've actually had a mom that is actually just pregnant and was talking to me, asking me about Hope Scholarship. I was like, right. So that's good. She's on top of it. So. Yeah. Well, it is. It's a game changer, and I think sometimes. I get so caught up in the implementation process of all this and all that we have to do. I stop, I don't take the time to look back and just get super excited about the fact that we actually have this. So I think that sums it up for my questions. Okay. For you, I really appreciate you taking this time to do this. Let's do this before I let you go. Okay. Let's just make sure we take the time to clarify that you, Adam Shuemake, are the Hope Director. Yes, you work at the Treasurer's Office. Yes, so tell me a little bit, define for us, give us some context for the Hope Board, the Treasurer's Office, and your role as the program director. So for us, and I think it does get a little bit confused, I'll be honest with you, for us, we're to administer the program. My job is to make sure that you guys are it's getting processed fast, that customer service is great. That's what we're for. The treasurer's office is here to administer this program and make sure that when you have questions that we answer them. And I think you said it quite often. Really, if you call, you talk to me or Miss Amy. If you call, you talk to a human being. If we get a voicemail, I'll return your calls. So that is our main role here. Our main role is to, the EMA portal. That's where you apply. They do all the technical side of this. Once again, like I said, Amy and I, we cannot click buttons and unlock emails.
Right.
We cannot do that. We can direct you to who to go to. We just want to make sure the program is running smoothly, and that's my main job. I have to make sure, and the board's job is to oversee that. When we make decisions, that we're not just randomly making decisions, that it's just not us picking things out of the air. Their job is to oversee basically me and to make sure that this is being done at a high level, and that decisions are made with very thoughtful decisions. And
that it's compliant, right?
This compliant with law. Yes,
exactly.
Ma'am.
Yeah. And so the treasurer's office is tasked with the administration, and they have contracted with Step Up for Students.
Yes.
This way our audience can kind of get an idea of who the players are here. So the treasurer's office is tasked as the government agency, and then we have Step Up for Students. You guys are contracted with them. Yes. That's where the EMA comes in to play for the portal and all of that.
Yes.
And then let's give them some reference for the Department of Education. So the Department of Education's role in this is to help confirm eligibility.
Yes, that's basically all the Department of Ed does. I know a lot of folks call them. They really, the only thing that they do is provide us a system to check eligibility. They don't oversee this. They don't have any oversight whatsoever. They really just help us do eligibility. And our job is to communicate with them. This is where kids are at. So they know where children are at, where they're making sure they're being educated. And that's their legal obligation. If you didn't go to school as a parent, you go to jail in West Virginia. So, and that's what it's all for. I think a lot of folks have an idea that they're here, like they want WEVIS numbers just to be able to track your kids. And it is tracking, but not really. Like they're not like looking up after that. They just want to be able to know, hey, that, Adam's kids are going here where they're supposed to be going. And so, but their role is not anything to oversight of this at all. I know a lot of folks call Dustin Lambert all the time.
I know.
Yeah, he sends them to me. All right.
Yeah.
So that's not what he does. So.
And the county boards are going to receive notices of intent. They're going to be the ones that issue WEVIS numbers for those upcoming kindergartners. They're going to receive the notice of intent.
Yes.
They're the ones tasked with marking in WEVIS. Many of them, either the county board or some of out of the 55 counties, and this, not everybody does it the same way. So it's very hard from a statewide perspective. When we work, I've worked in implementing sports access over the last couple of years, and it's very hard to put out any type of state directive because 55 counties doing it 55 different ways. But the county boards all receive the notice of intent. They issue the WEVIS. Either their county board or the school that they've delegated to will mark them as a Hope Scholar. And you guys, if I understood the directive correctly from yesterday's survey, these parents who had a Hope Scholarship notice of intent on file prior to the injunction, and then opted for homeschool or for private school, whatever it may be, they need to send in a new Hope Scholarship notice of intent to their county board to make sure that's recognized.
Correct. Yeah. If you they need to be aware of where you're at and what you're doing. So I know a lot of them went ahead and did homeschool. You had to do a different notice of intent. I know that was a lot, but if you did that, you need to go back and let them know, hey, now I'm a Hope Scholarship kid, because there are different exemptions to that, and they didn't know all that. So definitely. And once again, the best thing to do, for parents, and this is what I tell them when they call, you need to call your county board and get direction of what their process is. Yeah. Because there is not a universal process to achieving where you take your notice of intent, and how
Right.
you get your WEVAS. But if you are having issues with that, we do encourage you to contact us. We have a good relationship with the county boards, and we'll call them, and they have been very helpful and friendly, and they work great with us. But if you are having some kind of issue, you can contact us, and we'll reach out to them for you.
Okay, great. Well, I think that sums it up. I'm going to let you go, get back to
All
work,
right.
get back to your lunch hour. Thank
All
you so
right.
much
Thank
for
you.
taking the time to talk with us.
Yes, ma'am. See you later. Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so that was good. I feel like we got a lot in there. I'm excited to kind of dive into a lot of the information that I was talking about when the program launched late last year and earlier this year. So we're going to take you through. I went in and edited some of these slides, but most of it is pretty relevant. A lot of people want to know, we just talked with Adam about the role of the treasurer's office and the role of the Department of Education, our county boards of education, and the role of Step Up for Students as the program manager. So where does Jamie Buckland fit in the picture with the West Virginia few? So I want to give you a little bit of background. In Raleigh County, I have a hybrid homeschool program that I've been involved with now for about 7 years, Appalachian Classical Academy. A lot of my experience comes from running an alternative to public school, a program that serves homeschool communities, and we're excited to be a Hope Scholarship provider. So a lot of the consulting that we offer with the West Virginia few is to those who are launching similar programs, micro schools or learning pods. I also served as the legislative liaison for REACH, the county support group here in Southern West Virginia that supports homeschoolers. That's how I got involved in the legislature. We lobbied for sports access in 2020 for homeschoolers, passed that, and that's the funny thing about legislation. When something is passed, someone has to implement it. And I've worked alongside the SSAC and the Department of Education, Dustin Lambert, in implementing that piece of legislation so that homeschoolers would have access. All of this led to me working with other advocates across the state to launch the West Virginia Few, Families United for Education. What we do is kind of this nuance, like we pick up where others leave off, right? So if you actually, if your family needs to understand all of their options, the individualized consulting that we're able to offer just because of our experience here, largely my experience, is that we understand all of the different options and the access to them in a pretty nuanced way. And we're able to walk you through that and guide you. So let's talk a little bit about that. Historically in West Virginia, you had three options: public, private, or home. And then largely thanks to the work of the Cardinal Institute, Senator Rucker, and others across the state, we've ushered in charter schools and Hope Scholarship, and now even learning pods and micro schools. But traditionally it was public, private, or home. So public school, if you are enrolled, you've got all of this falls under traditional public schools, whether it's your in-person county school or it is virtual through the county. All of that is still under that public school umbrella. This is satisfying compulsory education. When a child is 6 by July 1st, as Adam just said, the state requires them to be in school. Basically, it's mandated that they are receiving an education. That's compulsory attendance. And so the majority of families in the state of West Virginia satisfy that by enrolling their child in in-person care in public school, in-person school. So that's the majority. And then in 2017, we launched a virtual program in the state of West Virginia. And now every county is required to offer an option for 6th grade through 12th that is virtual. So that falls under the public school umbrella. There are two options for private schools in the state of West Virginia. Exemption B, private schools. So if you're interested in either attending a private school or possibly starting one in your area, there are 12 out of the 55 counties in West Virginia that don't even have a private school. So we would love to work with those looking to launch private schools in their area. If you're either going to have an agreement with your county, that's an Exemption B school, or an agreement with the state, be registered as an Exemption K school, and they have criteria that you need to satisfy in order to become a school. So the children who are enrolled in private school, their parents don't actually submit a notice of intent. As we're talking about these notices, the actual school is the one that has that exemption on record. And they enrolling in the school is how your child is exempt from compulsory attendance. In West Virginia, sports matter, and everybody always asks, well, what about athletics access? And this is something that the West Virginia FEW has the experience to do, and that is to consult you and make sure that you understand. I just got a question a few minutes ago. My kid wants to play football. If we transfer him to this private school or to this micro school, is he still going to be able to play football with his sports team? The answer is no, but if you're interested in public school sports and being able to access that as a homeschool or private school or Hope Scholarship, do let me know, because we are gearing up for the 2023 legislative session, and we are looking at the needs of families and identifying what you're looking for. So right now in West Virginia, there are 3 athletics conferences. 2 are private, CA and CAT, for private associations, and then the SSAC is the public school conference for students. All right, so public, private, home, the homeschool exemption, which is what my family has chosen. This is our 16th year of homeschooling. And in order to satisfy the law as a homeschooler, the parent submits a notice of intent under Exemption C for homeschooling. There are 2 ways under the law. There's the approval, and then there's the notice. I do not know anyone who has sought approval from their county in order to homeschool. The majority of us simply satisfy the law by saying, hey, we're going to homeschool these kids. You submit that notice of intent with the required information. And then there are some assessment practices. We're going to talk just a little bit about this here in a minute. A lot of people want to know, what's the difference in homeschool and Hope Scholarship IIP? I do have a video on that with none other than Mike Donnelly, my friend from HSLDA. And we talk specifically about the differences, the commonalities and the differences between the homeschool exemption and Hope Scholarship. So this is where everybody was leading up to charter schools and Hope Scholarship. You were either public, private, or home. And then this year we have 2 in-person charter schools. This also satisfies compulsory attendance. So whether you're in public traditional school or public charter school, you're satisfying compulsory attendance. And we have 2 charter schools. We have one in Morgantown, one in the Eastern Panhandle, that are brick and mortar charter schools serving families. And then we also have 2 virtual charters. My friend Doug Cipoletti, formerly of the Department of Education, is the head of school for West Virginia Virtual Academy. They're doing a great job serving families with a virtual charter. And so those are the charter options that we have right now. So let's talk about the Hope Scholarship exemption. It is another way to be exempt from compulsory attendance. So to satisfy compulsory attendance, you're enrolled in public or public traditional, public charter. In order to be exempt, you can be enrolled in an Exemption B school. All the Catholic schools in the state of West Virginia fall under Exemption B. And then you have Exemption K schools that you can be enrolled in order to be exempt. Or you can submit that homeschool notice of intent. Homeschool is privately paid, privately directed. Parents are in charge of what they purchase, how they purchase it, what they're doing. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about assessment and what that looks like between homeschool and Hope Scholarship. But the Hope Scholarship is a separate exemption. And so when those of us who were in the interim of the injunction who submitted a homeschool notice of intent, Exemption C, that placed your child under a different profile, is what I call it, legally, as far as the Department of Education is concerned. If they were enrolled in Exemption B school or Exemption K school, it placed them under that exemption. That's why it's so important that now that the Hope Scholarship has been ruled constitutional, we're back up and running, your county has them under the correct exemption. And that is Exemption M as in Mary, the Hope Scholarship exemption. We'll talk a little bit about micro school exemption here in a minute, but that gets kind of confusing. So the Hope Scholarship is an education savings account. It's an ESA program that will allow parents and families to utilize the state portion of their education funding to tailor an individualized learning experience that works for them. That is the basic info on Hope. The eligibility. So a student is eligible or required to be enrolled into kindergarten. So if you have a student that's going to be 5 or 6 on by July 1st of the 2023 academic year, then they are eligible for the Hope Scholarship Program as long as they were not already enrolled in a public kindergarten or enrolled in private school or homeschool this year. So eligible for public kindergarten means they are eligible for the Hope Scholarship. or they've been enrolled this entire time in public school, or they've at least satisfied those 45 days. Those are the children who will be eligible for the 23-24 academic year for the Hope Scholarship. So when and how can you apply? Students who weren't eligible before July 6th, but become eligible may request an application when the process is back up in November. We just talked about that with Adam. Students who are eligible on July 6th, but did not apply at that time, but they are still eligible because they are, still in school, you're waiting until that March 1st deadline to apply. How much is it? It's the state portion of funding, roughly $4,600. There's a 5% administrative fee that goes to the program. So we're talking $4,298.60 for this academic year. How can you use Hope? This is something that I think deserves a framework, right? So once you're under the Hope Scholarship Exemption, you kind of have two pathways, and you'll see this on the notice of intent that the Treasurer's Office put out. Once you're under the Hope Scholarship Exemption, you can use those monies and enroll in a non-public school or a private school. It may be in West Virginia, or it may not be. The schools that are bordering West Virginia that serve Hope Scholars are able to become a qualified provider and serve them. So it doesn't necessarily, they do not have to be an in-state West Virginia school in order to sign up as a qualified non-public school provider. And they'll do that through EMA as well. So that's one option. You can enroll in private school. The other is to use the individualized instructional program. This is what people are referring to when they say they're going to homeschool with Hope. I cringe a little bit just because I've homeschooled for 15 years, and I understand that we're under different exemptions. We have different access, just like with sports access. When I'm working with families that are under the homeschool exemption, they have sports access through the legislation that we passed and have been implementing the last 2 years. Hope Scholars under IIP do not have that yet. So it's different, right? And we need to understand all of those options to make sure that what you choose for your child is what needs to be chosen. Just like Adam was talking about, the families that maybe satisfied those 45 days and then pulled their child from school and just canceled their eligibility for the Hope Scholarship. The West Virginia few exists to prevent that. We want to make sure that we're raising awareness across the state about the options for K-12 education so that you don't make a decision that you then 2 days later regret because you just didn't have that information. I've been there, I've done that, I've been in this space 15 years. So we want to make sure that you understand what your options are and have expert guidance to navigate those options. If you choose the IIP, the Individualized Instructional Program, you're going to purchase curriculum from the portal. I have some people that say, well, I've always used X, Y, and Z as a homeschooler, and I still want to use that. Well, if they become a qualified provider or a vendor and they're selling their curriculum through the portal, then you'll be able to use your Hope dollars for that. If not, you could still purchase it and still carry on about your business. I like to say I've been schooling my kids in a classical Charlotte Mason tradition now for over a decade. And I plan to continue to educate my children in that way. And that doesn't mean that I have to forsake everything now and all of a sudden do this government issued education. That's not what the Hope Scholarship IIP is. It is the pathway to actually individualize their education. It looks a whole lot like homeschooling. If you put these kids in class, you're not going to be able to tell who's under a homeschool exemption and who's under the Hope Scholarship exemption. But when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of how you're regulated and what you have access to, it matters. So if you do the individualized instructional program, how are you assessed? You're assessed annually in the 5 required subjects. So you have to instruct your child in those 5 subjects, and you have to assess them in the 5 subjects: reading, language, math, science, and social studies. You can do so by doing a standardized test that's been normed within the last 10 years. And there are plenty of testing options. Reach out, we can walk you through those. So you can do that and submit that assessment. Or you can also do the portfolio review. So when people say, what's the distinction between homeschool and Hope Scholarship? This is where we get to the distinction. You can still submit a portfolio review that's been reviewed by a certified teacher, just like you would if you're a homeschooler. The difference is for homeschoolers, they only submit it 3rd, 5th, 8th, and 11th. Still required to do it every year, still required to keep it on file every year, but it only goes to the county 3rd, 5th, 8th, 11th. Hope Scholars, it goes every year. And it doesn't just sit with the county, it goes on to the Department of Education. For some people, that's a game changer. It's a deal breaker, right? Like they don't want to do that. I get it. Then you don't get $4,600 or $4,300. But if the hoops are worth it for you, like, or I guess if the reward is worth it, then you're going to jump through these hoops. So people say, well, there's strings attached. What's a thread to you might be a rope to someone else. What's a rope to them might be a thread. You have to decide what's best for your family. But if having access to $4,300 is something that you'd like I wanted that for my Easton, right? He's my eligible kindergartner, then it may be worth it to you to continue on your journey just as you would have educating them at home and submit that assessment every single year to the county versus 3rd, 5th, 8th, and 11th. That is the distinction. That and sports access for now. Okay, so that assessment, again, you're going to submit that every single year. How can those dollars be used? We're going to drop a ton of links in the comments when we get done here, largely so that you can go through and have access to the parent handbook, the provider handbook. It has the list of qualified expenses so that you know how you can use those HOPE dollars. Some people ask me, how do they define curriculum? It means a complete course of study for a particular content area or grade level, including any supplemental materials required by the curriculum. A lot of folks are a little skittish about an ESA because they're familiar with public charters and that have been in other states. And those public charters have historically prevented users and families from being able to purchase faith-based curriculum or enroll in a faith-based school or program. So what is super cool about the Hope Scholarship Program are these 3 things. So will qualified service providers need to modify their curriculum or practices in order to serve Hope students? These are actual statutes in the law. C, education service providers shall be given maximum freedom to provide for the educational needs of Hope Scholarship students without government control. D, a participating school or education service provider is not required to alter its creed, practices, admission policy, or curriculum in order to accept eligible recipients whose parents pay tuition or fees from a Hope Scholarship account pursuant to this article. Lastly, this article does not expand the regulatory authority of the state, its officers, or any school district to impose any additional regulation of education service providers beyond those necessary to enforce the requirements of the program. Basically, there is a lot of autonomy that you are retaining, even when you become a qualified service provider. I talked a little bit about the Step Up for Students and the dynamics of the who's who for Hope Scholarship with Adam earlier. Adam is the Hope Director. I'm not. So we've had some confusion on that. I want to take every opportunity I can to just help give some context to this. So Adam works alongside the Hope Scholarship Board with the Treasurer's Office and the administration of the program. They're contracted with Step Up for Students. They do not have portal access at the Treasurer's Office. Adam and Amy do not have that. Step Up for Students is the contracted provider vendor who's running the program, and they are the ones with the portal access and the ones who we take a lot of our questions to. And that education market assistant, that's who was sending you out the email yesterday if you were already approved for the Hope Scholarship. If you want to become a provider, you need to think about this in 3 different ways. You're either a non-public school, you're either an education service provider, or you're a vendor. So schools are schools, service providers offer a service, and vendors offer a product. And you need to start wrapping your brain around that. Service providers, criminal background screening, schools, the tuition and fee structure. Again, we're going to drop a link to the parent handbook and the provider handbook, and you'll be able to access that and look through those stipulations so you can begin to prepare. A question we get is, why did they leave us out? Why are private and homeschooled children not eligible to apply? Hope Scholarship was written and passed to expand school choice, to provide options for families who may not have been able to afford them without it. And so I like to tell people, when I kind of got started in this in 2019, and as a traditional homeschooler, at first it was like, well, why do I care if there are charter schools? I'm educating my children in the way that I'm educating them. Do I really care about charter schools? Do I really care about an ESA? And in talking with my friends at Cardinal, Garrett Ballingy, and kind of grilling him consistently and picking his brain, I began to, my understanding of education kind of started to shift a little bit. I don't know if it's understanding or like my posture towards options began to shift, because I started thinking about all of the families who were reaching out to me over the last decade saying, can you tell us more about homeschool? Can you tell us, our child is not, their needs aren't being met in the public school system. We want something different. We can't afford private school. What are our options? It was always, there was a limit to what I could even offer them. Now, when I talk to families, I'm like, well, you have all these options, and let's go through all of them and figure out which one is the best one that's really going to meet your child's needs. The reality is that we estimate there aren't super accurate numbers right now. Unfortunately, because of COVID, the numbers have fluctuated, and we'll do a data poll in the next month or so from the Department of Education, since they just had their count day at the end of September, but we'll try to get a better number. But we guesstimate that there were around 30,000 privately educated students at the time that Hope Scholarship was being passed. And the way that the public school system is funding, there are three revenue streams. Federal, because your kid exists, there's a census, and that funding stream comes in because of that. Local, because of property taxes. So every county, and some counties have levies, so there's a local stream to that. The state portion is because the child is enrolled. So for the Buckland kids who've not been enrolled in school, our county was never getting that $4,600 for the child. They were still getting local and federal funding, but they weren't getting the state portion of funding because our kids weren't enrolled. So when a child has been in public school, the state has been paying $4,600. When they're no longer in public school, that goes back into the general fund. And the Hope Scholarship is funded out of that general fund. And so it is able to provide a pathway for them to have their education funded. Versus the state having to just come up with that money for kids that they weren't already budgeting for. So that's the reason we were excluded. But the good news is in 2024, so we're talking 2 years from now, July 1st of 2024, if we don't have roughly another estimate about 12,000 students participating in the Hope Scholarship Program, then in 2026, it opens up to everyone. So that's that. I'm skipping through that. Okay, some questions. Is there a cap on how many can participate? No. Is there an income cap? No. Is it just for those with special needs? No. In fact, if your child is being served in the public school system with an IEP, you need to consider that that does not follow them if you choose the Hope Scholarship. So what are the next steps? Parents, if you were awarded the scholarship prior to July 6th, complete the survey by EMA to secure that funding. The link should have been emailed to you. If your child was eligible and did not apply, you can apply in March for the 23-24 year. If your child becomes eligible, you're going to reach out to Adam and Amy, hopescholarshipwb.com. In order to receive individualized consulting on your next steps, complete our quiz. That's what we're here for. That's what the West Virginia Few offers. Yesterday was pretty crazy as people were trying to answer their survey. A lot of people don't necessarily understand compulsory education and exemptions, but we do here at the Few. And so if you have questions about that, reach out. I'm happy to help answer your questions. I've put my cell phone number out there. You can call me, you can text me, you can send Facebook messages. Just know that it could get lost. You can email me, jamie@wvfue.org. You can also, isn't Jessica amazing? None of this would be possible if I didn't have Jessica, my administrative assistant, helping me juggle all of this. You can reach Jessica at wvfue.org. And that's it. That's the Hope Scholarship 101. This is what we feel like the basic information is, so that you can just better wrap your brain around where your child was in the interim during this injunction. Hopefully this will help you in filling out that survey. If you filled it out wrong, we've already heard from many of you. Adam said it's okay. We're just going to let that portal open and get in touch with Step Up for Students to get that corrected. So you know where to find us. We're going to drop a ton of links in the comments. And I'm going to go through, I did promise a Q&A. So let me go over here and read some of these questions. Right. So if you have not applied for Hope Scholarship, okay, so the question is, talked to you yesterday, and just heard him say something about not pulling yet. If you have not been approved for the Hope Scholarship, okay, so let me set the scene, two different things here. If you were awarded the Hope Scholarship before July 6th, then it's approved. If you chose public school, but you're ready to go ahead and pull them out right now, you can do that. You can go ahead and pull them out. The Hope Scholarship exemption is now satisfactory for law. You can pull them out and submit the Hope Scholarship exemption. So yes to that. But if you were not approved before and you enrolled this year, in order to earn your eligibility and complete those 45 days, do not pull your child until you have applied and been awarded the scholarship. If you pull your child out of public school, whether it's in-person public, public virtual, virtual charter, or in-person charter, if you pull them prior to being approved, you have lost your eligibility. There's no way to get that back. Does a new Hope Notice of Intent need to be filed with the county if one was already filed prior to July 6th? According to the treasurer's office, and I'm seeing some messages come through that counties are saying, hey, you don't need to send this to us. According to the Hope Scholarship Board from their meeting a couple weeks ago, and the directives that are being given out by Adam and by Amy, yes, you need to have that Hope Scholarship Notice of Intent filed with the county, because if you chose homeschool or you enrolled in a B or K school, you were under a different exemption. So yes, you would need, sorry, I talk a lot with my hands. So you would need to go back under that Hope Scholarship exemption. If your county tells you something different, reach out to us. Let's stay in communication. We'll talk with Adam and Amy, make sure that we're all in this together. But yes, that is the direction that we have been given. Just to clarify, not all upcoming kindergartners need to be tested. They are only required to be tested if turning 5 after July 1st, correct, or turning 5 on July 1st, because the law reads by, so that's right. We actually did have a couple kids that weren't 5 on July 1st last year and were not able to apply for the Hope Scholarship. So that's right. All upcoming kindergartners do not need to be tested. I'm assuming I answered that question as far as more demographics. What can the Hope money be used for? The Hope dollars can be used for qualified expenses. You can find the list of those in the parent handbook. We'll drop those links here. I think that wraps it up for me. You guys have endured 50 minutes of my mug and my voice, so I think we're good at this point. Reach out if I can help you with anything else. Hopefully this gave you some context on who the players are, the treasurer's office and the Department of Education and Step Up for Students, and who I am, Jamie Buckland with the West Virginia Fuse. So thanks for tuning in, and let us know how we can help from here.